we're going to start with the Greens. And I'll be honest, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to figure out their constitution, how their election of officials and leaders work, and I don't know that I've made much progress. So we thought the best thing to do in this instance was to seek expert advice from a former Green MP, political activist, and genuine all-round stir-up. And there's nothing wrong with that in a functioning democracy, is there? So we are joined by Sue Bradford. Sue, welcome to the platform. Nice to have you with us.
Kia ora, good morning.
All right, Sue, walk me through this. First, I'm just trying to figure out, just take us through step by step, how do you get elected to be a co-leader of the Greens, and who does the electing, who does the picking in the Green Party?
Well, any party member can stand to be leader. You don't have to be a member MP or member of caucus, though of course that helps. You just need to stand and get a nomination. Then you're elected by delegates from all the branches. And so each branch has a certain number of delegates. They come together and vote usually at the AGM. What happened at the AGM this past weekend was they didn't have anyone standing to challenge James Shaw or Marama Davidson. They both stood, expecting, of course, to be elected again. And the shock came when the vote for James Shaw went over the opposition to James Shaw, the people who'd like him to go, went over the 25% of votes mark, which meant that he had to stand back and open the way for a proper co-leadership election to wait and see.
Okay, Okay, I thank you for getting us to that. That seems weird to me that just 25% of people, or just over 25% of people, decide they don't like you, even if no one's standing against you, and suddenly your job's on the line. What's the rationale? What's the logic behind that?
I'm afraid that I am not the person that can really explain that. You'd need someone deep inside the Green Party's constitutional arrangements, which I have to admit have changed probably a bit since I was in the party, because it's a long time since I was inside. But there were always quite convoluted voting and electing arrangements in the Greens. It's all geared to what they call participatory democracy, which is an attempt to have the memberships have a really strong say over who becomes leader. The voting process, for example, for who gets selected as MPs in the party list is extremely convoluted. And this is all in a bid to be more democratic, but I have to say that at times, from what I've gathered, both from when I was there, but also since, there are times when these processes can actually be used in the opposite way. Each political party has its own oddities, I'd say. I don't know anything about the internal workings of National NAC, for example. I'm sure from outside they'd probably seem quite odd as well. Every party has its own little ways, shall we say. Yeah. And the Greens are no different than anyone else. And I've always thought that the media and this is from my time as well, the media gave us quite a light ride, because they didn't understand that actually the Greens are just another political party, and that there are just as many power struggles.
Filming the Morris dancing.
No.
Okay.
Never to be forgotten.
So explain to us now. So he kind of loses this weird confidence vote, or it's an ersatz no confidence vote in James Shaw. So at the moment, he's not a co-leader. What is the process now, and what's the timeline on that process?
As far as I understand it, there is 1 week from Saturday in which any Green Party member or MP can stand and be nominated to be a co-leader. And because of the recent change of rules, which it went from it had to be a male co-leader, now it can be someone of any gender. So anyone can stand at this point to be co-leader. And of course, until a week's up, we won't know if anyone is going to mount that challenge or not. At the moment, Elizabeth Kerekere seems to be the only one possible, but who knows? After 1 week, there's a period of, I think, 4 weeks in which the election process happens. But that will be down to the delegates from the branches again. Okay. And at the moment, I mean, it has to be admitted that at the moment it looks as though James Shaw would have a pretty secure lock on it.
Yeah.
But,
does that person who gets...
can happen.
Does that person who contends or goes for that vote, do they have to get over the 75% again to be confirmed as co-leader?
No, I think it would be a straight-out election between, on votes between who got the most votes.
That seems crazy if you've deposed someone on 25% plus to then replace them with someone who doesn't have to reach the same threshold.
Well, it does become a contest at that point.
Yeah.
Just as any co-leadership contest would be in any party on the votes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so what was the problem with James Shaw? He seemed to me that your co-leaders, you have in the Greens this kind of social justice, quite radical side of the party, I guess, and maybe Marama Davidson, to a certain extent, Chloe Schwabrook and Golders Garriman and Mr. Mendenez, they represent that. And then James Shaw was the kind of middle-class Kelvin dinner party, acceptable face of the Greens, and it seemed to me quite a good combo. You could cover quite a lot of political ground with that sort of co-leadership.
Yeah, well, you've put that's quite right, literally quite right, which is how the Green Party has seen it since 2015 when James Shaw was elected co-leader. That's exactly what the Greens have been trying to do. They want a foot in both camps, so they want to keep what they can of what I'd call the left vote on environment and social justice issues, while at the same time trying to hold and win over the middle ground from Labour, National and ACT. That is the people that I guess we've all called the blue greens. So people like James and many others in the party are following exactly that trajectory. But if one comes from a left perspective, as I do, and thinks that we need to be doing, and that the left Greens come from, it's that actually the Green Party should be taking a much stronger stand on climate and environmental issues, and shouldn't have tied itself to the Labour government at a time when Labour had an outright majority after the last election. With
but
he
got that cabinet post, and there was that pre-budget budget. May not have been all you wanted, but at least there was some recognition and some progress on environmental issues.
Yeah, the progress is very small. I don't think that progress would have been much different if it had been just the Labour climate change minister.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. The Greens, and the same as Marama Davidson actually, taking a portfolio on homelessness, I couldn't believe it, because she's now part of a government where the homeless crisis continues to intensify. Yeah. Even more people are on the waiting list. So it's like the climate crisis continues to intensify. So they become, that argument that you made is totally valid, and that's where I think most of the Green Party is at. They want the Green Party to be in there in government no matter what, providing green cover to Labour, making very, very small changes where they can. But I look at the example of Te Pāti Māori, which has only 2 MPs, and they've gone in leaps and bounds. They'll get far more votes after the next election because they're taking clear positions. And it's not that you should never go into coalition, of course you need to, but it depends on what terms.
Yeah. So do you think this could be damaging or will be damaging for the Green Party come next general election?
Hard to know at this point. I can see that even Labour's worried about it, and it certainly won't be helping them. But parties do have to go through these processes, otherwise they are completely undemocratic. I mean, at least the party process has allowed this dissent, which has been brewing for ever since James Shaw was elected. Actually, it's been brewing inside and outside the party. A lot of people have left the party because of the direction it's taken under Shaw's leadership.
Where do you go if you lead the Green Party, though? You can't go further left, can you?
No. The only choice at that point, if you're Māori, you have the choice of Te Pāti Māori, or you can be an outside supporter. But really, yes, there's nowhere to go, and that's the position of people like myself, of course.
Yeah.
So it's not great. I'd rather be part of a independent Green Party myself that was taking really strong stands on all these important issues.
Okay. Is there the possibility that an independent Green Party or a new Green Party might be formed out of this chaos? Is there perhaps some appetite for that?
I'd say there's always an appetite about it among some people, but where the timing for that, who knows? And I'm not talking about that just now, but who knows in the long run? Because there's 2 choices really: either the Green Party ups its game and becomes a strong and truly independent voice on environmental and social issues, or I think in the long run this is what will happen. But I'm not seeing that like in the near future.
If James Shaw does remain, and people have said there's kind of 5 weeks to sort this out, is that the timeline as you understand it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
If he stays in Cabinet, has anything really changed? Is it more of the same and no progress?
Yeah, I think that's the most likely outcome. I feel sorry that the Green left and the young Greens who mounted this challenge didn't apparently, from what one can see, have a strong candidate or someone that was really willing and capable, had the mana. But someone might still come through. But I think if you had someone making a serious leadership challenge, they would have been ready and waiting the minute this vote happened.
Yeah.
So there was a certain lack of political strategy going on there.
Who drove this then? Who are the people who did drive this, Sue?
I mean, some of the names are in the media, but it's not for me to name people. And I'm not inside there anyway. I wouldn't know, much less be able to name people.
Well, I see Chloe Swarbrick has sort of said, I'm not interested. She's kind of walked away. And many would have seen her as the heir apparent.
That's right. And so she apparently was not part of this at all. But I think the argument to be made from the young Green and Green left perspective is that they were very frustrated because they've tried before to have votes of no confidence and to, for example, stand up against the cooperation agreement. But they failed every time. So this discontent has been simmering for a really long time. So I imagine they'll see this as a small victory, and it has destabilised the Greens, no question. But my sense of it at the moment, the most likely outcome is exactly what you've said, that James Shaw will retain co-leadership. Burma continues, and it will be, within weeks, it will be business as usual for the Greens. And for many, that will be the outcome they want. But from another perspective, it's not.
Look, most people are predicting a pretty close election come next year, Sue, and either Te Pāti Māori, Labour and the Greens get there, or ACT, National and maybe New Zealand First get there. Is there any possibility, if Shaw stays on, that the Greens can be truly politically, if you like, agile and maybe look at being part of a national government and making environmental gains under a centre-right administration?
I can't see it at the moment, but that has always lurked as a possibility among some Green Party members. That was certainly a very live debate when I was in the party in the last few years that I was in Parliament. Yeah. That was an extremely live debate. It was very real that quite a large number of Green Party people would have liked to have seen us take that road, like to be genuinely open to making a relationship with the right. I can't see it at the moment with the Greens because they do have a number of really strong MPs that would sort of over their dead bodies. So it's really hard to imagine it happening at this point. Yeah. And especially with Te Pāti Māori standing there keeping them honest. Yeah.
So I guess the thing is overall it just makes... I don't know, Green Party's different. It's a party of passion and idealism, and you don't need to be rational or logical necessarily for that. But it looks bloody amateur from the outside, doesn't it?
I just think this latest, from what I can tell, it's just another step in an ongoing rift, an ongoing inner-party struggle, and all parties have them. It's just that this time there's been an unusual amount of media interest and public interest. The spotlight has been shone on the Greens in a way it hasn't normally been, and I think that's a good thing. It's good that people might finally see actually the Green Party is just another political party. It's not something, magical or different like... separate from the rest. It's another party with internal factions and struggles, just as every single other party is. Yeah. And the people within it are trying to make change, and maybe someone will challenge, and it will become an interesting, and more will be revealed. I mean, it's good for people to understand more of what's going on inside parties.
I guess too, if Shaw were to survive this, there's still the possibility of leadership changes prior to the next election.
Sure. I mean, if some people or some person who had a lot of mana really went for it in a leadership struggle at the next AGM, that could happen.
Yep.
Of course, it's not ideal when you're just in an election year, but you never know. I mean, the other thing is whether James himself wants to hold on. There's always a question, and he's visibly shocked by what's happened. He wasn't expecting it. And, sometimes people think about it later and think, do I really want to continue with this?
Yeah.
And so you don't know what James Shaw himself might decide to do over the coming year.
Yeah. I hear you. Hey, Sue, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to give us your unique perspective on, as I said, a political story that still somewhat confuses me and I think many other people.
Sure. Yeah, great to be with you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
That is Sue Bradford, former Green MP activist, and I think that's a pretty straight up take on what's going on with the Greens. Shaw survives, but there's a rift there. What does it make you think of the Green Party?